Hey, it's John Nolan here. Listen, with everything that's going on in the world today, it's the perfect time to become self-sufficient, grow your own food if you can, and prepare with emergency food. You won't regret having this when you need it. And right now you can save $250 on a 3-month food kit from My Patriot Supply. It's their lowest price in 3 years. Go to preparewithinspired.com and get your $250 saving on this 3-month emergency food kit. That's preparewithinspired.com. Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, it's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for joining us again for another Inspired Conversation. And I'm honored and excited to welcome back a special friend of the Inspired channel, Gareth Icke. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, mate. Thank you for having me back. I often think when I do things, will I be invited back? But I have been, so I'm happy as Larry with that. I can't have been that bad the first time around.
Well, this is our third conversation, and we love you at Inspired. Our viewers love you, love your perspective. Gareth, for those of you who are new and who haven't seen him before, Gareth is an artist, a songwriter, a truth speaker, a freedom fighter, the host of Right Now on the Ickonic platform. And yes, you connected the dots right. He's the son of David Icke. So now we have connected all the dots here. Gareth, you just told me that you're expanding with the Right Now show, which is kind of focusing on the current news and what's happening. And you're adding a second show to the schedule. How's that going for you guys? And talking about current news, what is really, as I always say, buzzing around the Ickonic studios? What's happening and what do we need to focus on right now?
In the UK, it's the cost of living. It's the cost of everything has got to a point that is, utterly insane. Energy prices have just skyrocketed, and what they've done is that it's a weird one. So you've got the energy companies above them. You've got a kind of so-called independent group called Ofgem, and they regulate where the fuel cap is. So it's like you can only charge this much. You can't charge any more than that. And they all make billions in profit, these energy companies. But what Ofgem are doing is they're just raising the cap, and they're just raising the cap, and they're raising the cap like hundreds of percent. And so people's energy prices are going from, mine, for instance, went from £68 a month to £200 a month. In October, it's supposed to go to £450 a month. Now, I'm not paying that. That's not happening. But then in January, it's supposed to double again. So all of a sudden, you're talking like £1,000 a month, like 12 grand a year on £12,000 a year on heating your house. People can't afford that. People aren't doing that. So, people are, in the winter are going to freeze, basically, literally, in this country. And what people don't realize is above Ofgem, you've got a parliamentary ombudsman. So there actually is government above them. So when the government says, that there's nothing we can do, I've got an idea. Don't let them raise the cap. Don't let them raise the cap. The companies like Shell and others are making like £7 billion in profit in the last 6 months. And that's before these price rises go up. And so, I'm looking at it and I'm looking at my energy bills. My energy is provided by EDF, which wasn't my choice. I moved in and it was already there. And it sells itself to me as being 100% renewable energy. And then they say we need to double the prices because the gas prices are going up. Again, can I have a word? I thought you were 100% renewable.
If we look at the last 2.5 years and all the things that were presented in one way, and then they are very different when you look at them, is that something that people are catching on to quicker now and realizing it's a big orchestrated scam to usher something in and to bring in a control system and actually first to break the spirit? Is that something that people are catching on to quicker now?
They're catching on to it quicker. A lot of people aren't catching on to it at all, which is outstanding. Outstanding to me that I see kind of people that were lockdown fanatics with their Ukraine flags in the bios that are now complaining about the state of the economy. When your lockdowns destroyed the economy, and your government giving billions and billions of our money to a dictator in Ukraine is so he can prolong a war, which supposedly means your energy prices have to go up. So, there's a little bit of sort of, craziness there, which is quite confusing to see on the daily. But I think, most people are kind of starting to twig now that, hang on a minute, this this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't add up. How can you have a situation where these companies can make billions while these people can't afford to heat their food, or they can't afford to heat their homes and stuff like that? You know, someone's got to step in. And the fact that no one's stepping in is kind of starting to wake a few people up, actually. Yeah, that actually government doesn't care about us. I mean, the politicians aren't worried about energy bills because they don't pay them. You do. So it doesn't affect them, so they don't care. And my one hope is, you know, with Klaus Schwab uses this line, you know, COVID-19 is a narrow window of opportunity and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, I agree with you, mate, actually, but not to, you know, reset society and destroy everything and everything that people love, although that's what you're doing. It's actually a window of opportunity to bring people together, a window of opportunity to make people actually realize that I don't really care what your pronouns are, and I don't really care what party you vote for, or what sexuality you are, what color you are, any of these things, because we're all freaking freezing. So it actually doesn't make any difference, you know. And so hopefully, you know, those divisions and those fault lines that are completely manufactured anyway will actually start to knock away a bit, because this sort of, all of a sudden, there's no privilege. You know, you can't claim that I'm privileged when we're both sat in sleeping bags freezing our asses off. So actually, you know, let's start to work together and realize that when we do work together, we're all right. We're all right as a human family. And actually, you know, we don't need this hierarchy above us, which is stepping on us the whole time. So I actually am a little bit more optimistic about it. What I'm annoyed about is that it takes it to get to this level of insanity for people to actually step up and go, do you know what? We need to do something about this.
I know, and I think you and I have discussed this, and of course you with everyone else. I think it's hard if you know where the ship's going, you can see it on the horizon, you know exactly what's going to happen, and yet it takes, you know, up until the very last moment for most people to see it too. On the other hand, I think in making it this obvious as it is now everywhere in the world, I mean, you have to be dead under a rock not to figure out what's going on. Making it this obvious also makes kind of it easier to, you know, make a decision and say, no, absolutely not. You said you're not going to pay, right? You said 450 or 600, however high they want to go. I mean, you're not going to pay. Do you think, you know, short of 1 million people walking into the Houses of Parliament, whether that's, you know, in the UK or in any other country, and simply, not violently, but simply peacefully taking over and saying, hey, this is not happening, we're taking this place over. Do you think there's any other form of solution short of this?
Well, I think the thing is, I don't think with something like this, it's necessarily even a decision that you make, like, you know, a decision you make to not pay. If you don't have the money to pay it, you don't have the money to pay it. It's as simple as that. And that's only going to get worse, you see, because people kind of look at the energy crisis and they go, oh man, my heating's going to go up. That's rubbish. I'll be able to afford, you know, less beers on a night out or whatever. And you go, well, hang on a minute, because that pub has got to pay the increased energy prices, and there's actually no cap on commercial interest. So actually they're paying even more. A friend of mine runs a restaurant. He collared me a couple of weeks ago when I was on the Isle of Wight. And I'll be honest, mate, I didn't recognize him, right? Because he always had like bright ginger hair, bright ginger beard. We used to play, his band used to tour with my band. And it was only a few years ago that I saw him, maybe 3 years ago. And he said, he came over to say hello. And I was like, he goes, you don't recognize me, do you? I was, oh, mate, I'll be honest, nah. And he was like, he said his name. And I was like, fuck. He was full gray, like, you know, I've got some, but I'm talking full. And he was like, he goes, mate, this is what stress does to you. And he was saying that they were paying £600 a month for all their electricity and gas in their pub restaurant. He said now it's jumped to 2,600, and it's jumping again in October, and it's jumping again. He's like, I've got to sell up, I've got to close down, like I'm done. And they were a successful business. So you imagine those businesses that are just on the breadline. Well, they're totally gone, you know. So all of a sudden, it's not just your energy bills are going up, but your house. Suddenly, you know, the pub you go to, that's closed down. The restaurant where you met your wife, that's closed down. The ballet school that your daughter, no, that's closed because it needs to heat the place. So they're gone, you know. So then all those people are now unemployed. So they then walk back to their house, back to the energy bills that they couldn't pay when they were employed, and now they're unemployed. And so the whole idea of it, and people are, you're right in asking the question, that people are starting to kind of piece this together now. Actually, hang on, because they're having to sprint for home a little bit. They're being a bit obvious in what they're doing. And so I always think, World Economic Forum always tells us, they say that the Great Reset was a conspiracy theory when it's a book you can buy on Amazon. Do you know what I mean? Like he's not hiding it. And the other part of that is that whole kind of you will own nothing, but you'll be happy. And people's first reaction to that was, no chance. What do you mean I won't own nothing? I own my house, I have a car. Like, no, go away, right? And that's fair enough. So if I came up to you now and I said, you know what, mate, you can still live in that house you're in. You can still drive your car and all that stuff. Your life won't change. But if you just sign it all over to me, I'll own it, but you can still use it and still live there. You tell me to...
you'll rent it to me.
Yeah, you'd go away. No chance. You'd probably laugh at me. But then you go forward and you go, okay, so now you've lost your job. You can't afford the bills. Your mortgage repayments are in arrears. Bailiffs letters piling right up. They want your car, your TV, your kid's bike, the whole lot. You got nothing. You can't feed yourself. You can't keep the roof over your family's head. Then I come back and I revisit it and I say, look, you can still live there. There's no, we'll wipe all of this stuff. Just sign it over. You'll be like that. Yeah, bro. Of course, mate. Like, do you know what I mean? But then obviously then that comes with conditions going forward that I can take all that stuff off you anytime I want because I own it technically. You signed it over to me, mate. So you have to tick this box, this box, this box. You can't talk about this on social media. You can't refuse a vaccine, for instance. You can't do any of those things that are against the state, the will of the state, basically. And that's the plan for where this is going completely. So then when you look at these energy prices increasing, you look at food production uses energy, transportation uses energy, everything relies on that. Suddenly, there's nothing anymore. Like with one foul swoop. I mean, I remember someone saying to me years and years ago, do you know what? If you want to kill America, which sounds like a weird conversation to have, if you wanted to kill America in one foul swoop, just poison the tomato ketchup. They love tomato ketchup over there, right? It's like, fair enough. And it's like, so if you wanted to destroy everything, energy, done.
What's so puzzling to me, I mean, you're part of a family and your dad's been out there beating the drum on this for more than 30 years. And he laid it out. It wasn't just some, out in the air wild theory. He laid it out pretty much. And he was not the only one. People caught on and people researched deeper and they laid it out exactly what was going to happen. It's exactly going down this way now. Where's the disconnect? This is what where's the disconnect that people just say no? What is so hard? And as they're losing and losing and losing, because now, as you say, it's existential. It's not luxury anymore. It's not, okay, I can't fly somewhere else in the world twice a year. It's only once a year. No, now it's going to, am I going to eat or going to be warm? Can I actually feed my child? And this is this month. In 6 months, I know for sure I won't be able to, or in 3 months. And of course, in 3 months, we're in a dead of winter in the UK, which means, death for people if they can't heat their homes. What is the disconnect? What has it been so long? And where's the spark of fire? That's what I'm still, when we saw the truckers in Canada, that was a spark of fire that I thought that was the shot that was heard around the world that was going to actually trigger this. And it did trigger a lot. We see a lot of, a lot of people bonding together. But what I don't see is this going over this last threshold and actually pulling the plug and saying, no more, this is over right now. Where's the disconnect? I really want.
It's $1 million question. But for me, when I look at it, I think a lot of people, if they're at a casino, and they're gambling away, as long as they've got chips on the table, that they'll protect those chips. I've got some chips. I'm still in the game of life. I've got some chips. They're not necessarily kind of focusing on the fact that actually you had a hell of a lot more chips like 10 minutes ago, and if it carries on going the way it's going, then you're not going to have any. People don't seem to kind of wake up at that point. They tend to wake up at the point when they look down and there's literally no chips. So when people have nothing, like not in 3 months, in 6 months, but they have nothing, at that point, I think that's when people will turn. But, that's also very, very late in the game. I mean, you're much better off, fighting back when you've still got the means to do so. That's the way I see it. But unfortunately, a lot of people need to get to the point of no return before they'll decide to start throwing some punches, which is frustrating because, we spoke before about the fact that even with lockdowns, like that could have ended immediately. Just say no. Just say no at the start. Just know we're not going to comply with it. And in the end, that's what people did, but they did it after 2 years. It takes a month to kill an economy. It certainly doesn't take 2 years. So that kind of part of it is very, very frustrating. But then at the same time, to balance that, when you're fighting people with nothing left to lose, they're the most terrifying people of all. It is unfortunate that, people like ourselves and others have seen through this and have tried to explain to people exactly what's coming. It's like, I'm just some guy that played in a band, like in England. How the hell can I say stuff in March 2020 about what they're going to try and do? And it's what's happened. It's like I knew exactly what the COVID vaccine was going to do when all the doctors are saying that's a conspiracy theory, that's rubbish. It's like, well, so how do I know that then? The information was there if people wanted to look at it. On today's show that we're filming, we've got a Pfizer whistleblower who's coming on and has been speaking out since 2020. People are starting to listen now, but was saying how they were falsifying data in the trials and how they were unblinding patients and stuff to manipulate the data. And no one wanted to know. And now they finally are. And what's funny as well, mate, is Pfizer have come back trying to get the lawsuit, because she's suing them, trying to get the lawsuit thrown out, not because it's untrue, because she's got the receipts. She provided all the receipts to the British Medical Journal. But because the American government knew about it, and they still carried on working with them, then that's on them. That's literally why it should be thrown out, which is a hell of a logic, isn't it?
Well, it's what we see in all fields, and as you say, it is coming out in all fields. And I want to switch gears, but not really, but just bring this conversation into a different realm. As I'm looking at your dad's new book, The Trap, I think he's done one thing once again. It's kind of like when it seems that people are catching on with what your dad is saying, he's coming out with another quantum leap, and people are once again, what is he talking about now? This book is another quantum leap, I think, and he goes much deeper into the nature of our reality. As we see these strange things unfold in our everyday lives, and the speed, the acceleration, things don't make sense whatsoever anymore. The old normal is gone. There is no new normal, so to speak. What is your take on the quote unquote simulation theory? And are we actually in a matrix, kind of like portrayed in the movie? How do you see the things that your dad speaks about in the book?
It certainly feels that way, and it's interesting in the book where he touches on the non-player character aspect, because that's something like NPCs have become kind of like a term of the COVID era, and I think a lot of people probably use it as maybe an insult or as a throwaway, but there's a lot of people, myself included, that I actually, I feel like I've met these people. Like they are literally non-player characters. That there is, you try and explain stuff to them. You will provide data from their own sources, that they respect, and there's nothing. There's nothing there. And in the end, like I would get myself so frustrated. In the end, I'd learned to give up. I don't bother with those people. That's fine, because there's other people further down the road that are more open to new information or whatever. And I couldn't understand, like you mentioned a minute ago, the disconnect. Like I couldn't get my head around how people can't see this, or how they can continue to live in almost like this kind of weird, almost like this autonomous way where there's actually, the engine's running, but there's no one behind the wheel. Not really. And then obviously in the book, he focuses a lot on this sort of non-player character thing of actually it being a literal thing. And I'm like that is so true. Like I remember playing like video games as a kid where, you're in control of a certain player and I'm running down the wing if I'm playing football, and this guy is making a run into the box, but I'm not controlling that guy and he's not controlling him because it's a fucking computer game. But the computer game has programmed him to make that run. So he makes that run. And I think, there's people in this world that are programmed to act and behave in a certain way, that actually there's no one behind the wheel. Basically, they are literally a software program, which is crazy for a lot of people to get their head around. But if you actually think about it, and then think about people in your life, people maybe that you work with, maybe even family members, and apply that as an explanation for why they act the way they do. Do you know what I mean? That it doesn't feel quite so crazy when you actually think about that, and you go, "Oh, that explains a hell of a lot, man."
Well, I've been thinking over the past weeks, months, more about something that I haven't considered before. I've considered for a long time that this might be a simulation, that we might live in a sort of matrix where I think it's hard for us to use the right language to determine this, because we only have our current perception and understanding of technology, and this might be very different. But I'm thinking now that the prospect of this metaverse, what Zuckerberg is talking about and many others are talking about in this disconnected arena that I can't really connect with in any way. What if we actually already are in a sort of metaverse, and we're reverse engineering the understanding by bringing more and more layers to it, but we actually already are in it? And is this ever a discussion point of what do we do about it? I mean, it doesn't feel right to my spirit to live in a simulation. I want to know what the real thing is. And of course, your dad speaks about it in the book, but what's your take on that? How do we get out of this matrix?
Well, that's the interesting part of the book, really, like in terms of kind of, whoa, because I've almost always gone along with this I've always believed in reincarnation for a start, but I've kind of always sort of subscribed to the theory that, you live lives to gain wisdom, basically, and then once you get to that higher level of yourself, then I'm out of here, boys, I'm done. Which obviously the book kind of throws that theory under the bus a little bit, which was kind of a bit of a kind of, oh man, that's annoying, but again, it makes sense. Why would you then continue to keep coming back but not remember what you learned before? So therefore actually you're not evolving, you're not actually learning. It seems to make a good argument for the fact that maybe reincarnation is a trap, basically, and actually walking towards the light is, a trap, and actually just keeps you within the simulation. And, I'll try it when I die. I just won't walk towards the light, and I'll see what happens.
Well, and that was the part when we aired your dad's interview that most people jumped on. I mean, the comments were just off the hook about, what do I do if I, don't walk into the light? Where do I actually walk? I mean, part of the answer is read the book, but, I think this thought process will already propel us into a new way of thinking, and maybe even a new way of living. One more time, just real quick, the NPCs, or the non-player characters, some people call them backdrop people. Do you think they're simply inserted into the matrix by the computer program, and they're actually not real biological beings, or they are of a different species? And would you say that, on the other hand, these evil, entities, what are they in your perception? Are they human? Are they like we are? Are they different?
I think the idea of the metaverse that you used as an analogy to explain it is interesting, because if you go into the metaverse and you have other characters in there that aren't necessarily human, they're not, necessarily you or me that are controlling a character within the metaverse. I guess it's kind of like that. I guess that's kind of the theory, really, that actually the metaverse is a simulation within a simulation. And actually, maybe, we're looking at the metaverse in a way that people outside our simulation are looking at us, which is kind of quite concerning in a weird kind of way. And it makes you think, like, when I go to the toilet, is someone watching me, even though the blinds are closed? I don't know. Good luck to them if they are, I suppose. But yeah, I guess that is the idea of it. And for me, a non-player character would be kind of literally just a computer generation. It would be as realistic as me and you. If we're inside a simulation, then it would be as realistic as me and you. But there's not free will behind the steering wheel. It's kind of being steered by the parameters of AI, basically. That's the theory anyway. That's what the book is saying.
Yes, and to me, honestly, the place where I most feel disconnected from anything artificial is still nature. I wonder if it's real or not, if it's just what is projected, but that's where I really connect harmoniously. And I noticed that on Ickonic, on the platform, which is fantastic, by the way. I love Ickonic. My wife and I regularly watch it. You have a great variety of consciousness-based movies that go back to nature, that go back to greater awareness. Is that something that is a little bit of a shift also? Because I feel like there's more and more content going in that direction. Is that important to you to guide people in that direction? And what are some of your favorite movies on the platform?
I think a lot of it for us in terms of the conscious decisions that are made here are to try and be solution based, because I think that's massively important. So in terms of going back to nature and self-sustainability, I think that's just a necessity, basically. That's something that we're going to have to do as a human race, because, this system is destroying us. So it's not working, to the point where going to the supermarket in 5 years' time that just might not be a viable option. So therefore, we need to be self-sustainable. We need to be able to grow our own food. And also, getting back to nature. I'm the same as you, mate. I'm literally like, I've moved out of the city. I've moved out right out into the sticks. And I just feel like a completely different person being there. It's annoying that to come into the studio, like I'm driving an hour round trip, which, in North American standard is nothing, but in the UK
standard, down the road.
Yeah, that's a bit of a drive here. But just to, when I finish here or whatever, just get the hell out of Dodge and be out in nature, I feel completely different and completely at ease. And so I think in terms of the solution-based stuff, but also about alerting people to the fact that they are more than they think they are. They're more than the television tells them they are, or the politicians tell them that they are, so that we can kind of try and expand ourselves a little bit. And, I don't know if my brother's thinking was exactly the same as mine, in the sense that, going to the protests and stuff and seeing how people seem to grow and evolve as characters from when they first turned up at protests where they didn't know anyone and they'd lost family members, work colleagues, friends, because they didn't have the same opinion, and so they'd turn up at these protests on their own, a bit broken, and would gradually kind of, become friends with people at the protest. And then the next protest 2 weeks later, they'd be in a bigger group, and then they start to swap numbers and network. And then you'd see them at the protest in 2 months' time, and they'd be like, they would be glowing, they'd be dressed, more kind of like, this is me, I've always wanted to be this person and I never could before, because, what you wearing, love, and all that sort of nonsense. And I was just, watching that, I was just thinking, this is something that we should try and promote, this kind of self-exploration of actually, we don't need to be what society says we are. Basically, we can be ourselves and express ourselves in whichever way we want, which is why I think a lot of the conscious-based stuff is on the channel, because a lot of the people that work here, to be honest, have taken on that same transformation. Because we don't have here, if someone applies for a job here, the questions aren't, do you believe in this? Do you believe in that? Those questions aren't asked. There's no discrimination whatsoever. It's a case of, are you the best person for the job? And there have been a couple of scenarios where people have walked in with a mask on, looked around the place. One particular person looked around, sat down, was given a series on meditation, which is, pretty mainstream meditation, and got up and left because it was too out there for him. But apart from that, most of the people that have come in here are just like regular people that have worked in IT or worked in video production, that are not really necessarily into the information or into any of the stuff that we talk about, but have actually been immersed in it and have actually started to then do some research and actually look at stuff and go, oh man. And so you can actually see that's happened within the office, which I guess is why these people are making content that's more like that now.
That's amazing. And that is precisely what I think is happening in so many ways, shapes, and forms, is when people are actually around truth or let's say at least truth seeking. I mean, because I don't want to say we have it all. We're seekers, I think, and we do our best to get to the bottom of it. But when people are around that energy, that is a very beautiful, pure, and loving energy. And I think that just resonates with people. So I think it's wonderful to hear that we have the same experience one thing that we've noticed, and you just touched on that with communities and groups, and in the age of social media, and you and I can talk now. You're in London, I'm here in Tennessee. We're not in the same room though. We share a lot of things, but it isn't quite the same as being together and actually being in a analog, real life community. And we've noticed that people have a hard time now, even thinking about how to do that. How do I actually connect with like-minded people? And we try to encourage them to just talk to people wherever you are, and you'll see wherever there are similarities, exchange phone numbers, get together, talk about things. You might see that you have a lot more in common, and you can actually create synergies around things. Do you see more groups coming up in the UK, local groups where people start growing food together, or they start, just putting their minds together, coming up with new ideas? Is that happening?
Loads, mate. Yeah. And, England particularly, because, the UK is getting better, but England has been the forefront of it. Scotland is just starting to wake up now. Wales is just starting to wake up now. Whereas England, to be fair, it was pretty sound asleep for probably the first month of the first lockdown, March 2020. But that was about it. Then protests started growing. And by that summer, it was tens of thousands. By the following winter, when they locked down again, there was hundreds of thousands, so it was. And these groups, particularly people that have lost jobs through mandates and stuff like that they've then rescinded. But, by that point, people are going like, no, I don't want my job back. I don't want to work for you in within this system. So people have gone and started their own, growing food, homeschooling, all these things like homeschooling or home ed used to be kind of almost a little bit kind of not necessarily frowned upon, but I knew someone I think who homeschools, but now there's like so many people are doing it that those groups are growing and growing and growing, and they're all over the country. And it's interesting because we go into London protests, hundreds of thousands of people, and then what was happening on these World Freedom Days is London was maybe 40,000 people. And people in London started, I had these conversations with people, they seemed to become a little bit demoralized. It was like, man, we had like 700,000 like 4 months ago, and now it's like 50,000 or whatever. Like, what's going on? It's like, no, wait. Mate, there's one in Birmingham today. Like, my friends in Derby haven't come to London. They've gone to Birmingham. I would only ever go to London because my dad would then come up from the Isle of Wight, and it would just be an excuse to kind of hang out with my sister and my dad and whatever. Otherwise, I'd have gone to Birmingham. I was like, there's one in York today. There's one in and so you go, well, okay, well, there's 10,000 here. There's 10,000. And all of a sudden, you realize that actually there's 55 or 60 of these all over England. And actually that's better than having 700,000 in London, where the police can kind of bottleneck you around. You walk around. It's a great feeling to be around that many like-minded people, but then everyone gets on the trains. They go back to their communities. What's in their community? Fuck all. And so they look forward to going to London in a month, and it's kind of like, but that's not sustainable. That's not going to fix the issues. I can't be around like-minded people once a month for the rest of my life. Like, that's just ridiculous. And so, those big London protests have just evolved and grown. And so now there's protests in Nottingham. You have Derby's a difficult one because Derby is like, you ever seen the film 28 Days Later?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so the premise is the guy's in a coma and he wakes up and there's been a zombie apocalypse. And so as he comes out, there's just like zombies about. That's Derby. Okay. Right? I mean, I love the city, but it's an interesting place. So the protest movement here is like non-existent, but those people that are on the same page here, they just travel to different parts of the country and stuff. So there has been a huge growth where people have gone, I'm going to step outside the system. We're going to do it on our own. There's no egos, everyone's equal. We run these groups together. And I've been fortunate enough to go and speak at some events, and for some reason they seem to give a shit about what I've got to say, which is kind of quite funny to me still. I've not quite got my head around that. But there've been great events with great people who've just seen through the nonsense. And actually, whatever they throw at us now, these people are not going to go back. They're not going to go back to sleep. And I was talking to some guys from Australia earlier, and they were saying that Australia's, the wake up there is real slow. Like, it is slow. And that's frustrating. And I get that totally. But I was saying to them, but at the end of the day, like, people are only ever moving one way. Like, you've got asleep, you've got awake, and people are moving from the asleep to the awake. No one's coming back the other way. So even if it is a slow progression, it's still a progression. And at some point, it might take a year, it might take whatever. You're going to get to that tipping point of actually where that outweighs that. And then the whole game changes. As it did here in Christmas 2021. That's when the whole game changed. They wanted to lock back down again, and public opinion was not a chance. And so it was over. It ended. And COVID here is gone. It's done.
And the same here. And I think it's actually what you mentioned, that people care about what you say. I think it because you speak the language, you speak their language, you understand them, because you're not putting yourself above anyone. You are one of them. You're experiencing this just like that. You're also a father. You and your wife are parents of 2 young children, and that in and of itself puts you in a completely different situation, because all of a sudden you have this amazing, wonderful responsibility. It isn't just you; it's literally 2 new lives. And looking at that, what do you feel you as parents are doing completely different than maybe was mainstream or used to be kind of common practice? What is different in the way that you raise your children, and even going forward in education? What do you plan on doing?
Well, I listen to them, for one thing. I think a lot of parents, I'm not telling people how to parent their kids, like everyone do what they feel is right. But what for me is, you hear a lot of parents, is the attitude of you have to teach your kids, tell your kids about this, tell your kids about that. And that's fine, pass on your experience. Absolutely. That's the whole point. I get that. But no one really listens to their kids, And so it's different with Ophelia. She's 1. So I get to hear her say, doggy, everything with 4 legs, right? So I'm not getting so much of a conversation from Ophelia at the minute. But with Alora, Alora is hella smart, hella expressive, very flamboyant, totally kind of just. And so I listen to her, and she explains things, and she says things to me. And there's so many times, honestly, mate, I'm like, it's a really good point. And it's coming from a 4-year-old, But I'm also in a difficult position with her, because she starts school, primary school, on Monday, right? And I'm petrified. But she wants to go to school. Her cousins go to school. They love it. She wants to go. And so, it's a difficult situation. My attitude is we live in a tiny village, so it's a tiny school. So that makes a difference, I think. Met the teachers. They seem sound. They seem nice. But I also have a situation where my wife is a primary school teacher, and my brother's wife is a primary school teacher. So actually, if it gets to a point where they want to try and knock the creativity out of her, then she's out of there quicker. I'll literally just be outside with the engine running, get in, we're off. So but my fear at the minute is that her creative side will get they'll try and knock that out of her. Don't do it like that. This is how you do it. And it's like, well, maybe just try that, and yeah, that's my fear. So in terms of teaching, I'm kind of resigned to the fact that we will probably end up homeschooling or be part of some home ed group at some point, almost certainly. But at the minute, it's what she wants to do. And, I went through mainstream education and I was fine. I was absolutely fine. I know others that went through it and had a real bad time. So I guess it's it's on individual merit. But like I say, it's a small school in a small village in a mining community where people don't tend to take crap, if I'm honest. So I can't see them getting critical race theory or gender theory into the schools where I live, because I don't think people will have it. To put it into context, if I can swear briefly, I lived in this village for a day, right? So the first morning, woke up in the house, boxes everywhere, needed bread and milk and, cheese and butter and whatever sort of stuff you have in the fridge. So I was like, I'll take a walk to the shop. This is about 7:30 in the morning. So I'm walking up the road and there's a guy there with his dog in his front garden. I've never seen this guy before, ever, obviously. And he looks at his dog and says, well, you shut the fuck up. Hello, mate. Right.
I love it.
Hello, mate. I was like, this is my village. This is where I want to be. Salt of the earth, spit and sawdust. These are the kind of people you want to be around. So I'm hoping that kind of nonsense won't fly there. But if it does, then, we'll just have to homeschool.
Kristin and I feel the same way. We're, our hearts are always out in the country. So we're here in, Tennessee is in the South. So you go out into the country, you see real people, you see, and it's real conversations and a lot of common sense that's still left. We love that. You see that way more out there. And about, the children, our 3 children went through a variety of different systems, from public school to, Waldorf, from private school, homeschool, no school. We kind of tried a lot of things, always in partnership with them, and said, you know what, we think it's time to maybe try something different. But at the same time, Kristin and I were very inspired many times to just walk into the school, talk to the teachers, talk to the principals, because we also wanted to inspire change. And we were, I think, we had kind of a reserved special seat at the principal's office where we were almost every month. So that too, to me, is a good opportunity to inspire, a thought process and change. So it's all interesting. And as you say, you can always pull back and say, no, this is not working for now.
Yeah. I imagine I'll be exactly the same as you. Like, I want to be involved in the kids' education. I don't want, I don't want the state to be a babysitter for 6 hours, 5 days a week. Do you know what I mean? Like I have, and I know a lot of people are like that kind of, I don't know what my kids learn in school. It's like, oh, okay, mate, well, maybe you should. And so, I would definitely be involved 100%.
I want to share a quick story with you because it just came up, how things can drastically change if you actually speak up. And I remember our oldest daughter, she was, that was back in Austria. She was in a school that was bilingual and she didn't speak the second language yet, which most kids did. And her teacher in that language, Slovenian, she was terrified of. She was afraid of him. And we actually decided that that's not acceptable, and so we walked in there and had a meeting with him, and it took us about an hour to get through to him. And I said, she's 11 years old. Do you really want for that to be the legacy of your influence that you have over her, that she will remember you as someone she feared? She's afraid of you. She's literally afraid of you. She doesn't want to go to school whenever she knows she's going to have a class with you because she fears you. And eventually the penny dropped. And from that day forward, he was a changed man because he didn't realize he was fear inspiring. He didn't realize that. And so to me, that was one of the most inspiring things that ever happened, because that potentially changed the whole trajectory of his teaching experience. But more importantly, it changed what kids in the future would experience in a classroom. So I think we have to be willing to go into these places and speak and talk and, inspire change too. So that's Absolutely. Just as an encouragement on this journey that you're embarking on with your daughter of being in school now, which is, I know what is terrifying about it. I remember it, kind of the idea that other people you don't know have very much influence over what's happening. So, yeah.
You're a lot more diplomatic than me, I've got to say. I'm thinking the idea of Alora coming home terrified of a male teacher. I can just see myself flying up there. But yeah,
that's my wife.
Okay.
Yeah, we're kind of we were always a team. She was the one that, it's more like you probably, and I was the diplomatic, and together I think we managed to have quite a bit of good results there.
Yeah, a bit of yin and yang works, I think, definitely. Yeah.
So Gareth, how can people watch right now on Ickonic and all the other movies and the Dot Connector that your dad does and all the other great shows on Ickonic? How can people watch that?
Just ickonic.com, spelled funny with a K, ICKONIC.com. If you go there, you can start a free 7-day trial. So click on and have a look around. I mean, there's so much stuff there now. We're just about to drop. I'll sound American now. We're just about to drop the third series of The Walk as well. So I've been kind of watching some of the rough cuts that Rich, who's directed it and is editing it, has sent over, and it is funny. It is funny, even though I was part of it. It is funny. And some of the people that we're talking to, the historians and stuff, have got a totally different perspective on history in Scotland, which is where this series was filmed. So that's interesting. So there's also entertainment shows on there as well, because I think we've spoken about this before with new media or the alternative or whatever people want to call it. it's very much about kind of waking people up to what's going on in the world. And often what's going on in the world is pretty bloody depressing. And so there's not a lot of light in the dark, really. So, you know, me, Rich, and a couple of others have kind of sort of taken it, Rich Willett, have kind of taken it upon ourselves to say, look, you know, we need to add some humor into this as well, you know, and some entertainment into this so that people, you know, want to kind of watch these series and are safe in the knowledge that, you know, you can sit and watch the Dot Connector or Right Now or whatever, these serious shows. But, you know, you can also, you know, find some light relief as well, because, you know, one, God, it'd be depressing if you didn't have light relief, but also I think it's a really good way of fighting back against these people. Because, I mean, if I think back to the school bully, like the worst thing you could do to the school bully is laugh at them. Man, they hate that. They hate that. If you'd have run at them with your fist clenched, that's fine. They'll knock you clean out. But if you just laugh at them, you know, it takes their power away completely. And so, you know, some of the shows, particularly like the What If podcast and stuff, we just laugh at these people and the whole absurdity of it. So yeah, people want to sign up for a 7-day free trial and check it out and see what you think.
I encourage you all to go to Ickonic.com, look through everything. It's really a big variety of wonderful documentaries, movies, shows. As I said, Kristin and I love it. And it also supports the work that the Icke family does and the extended team and everyone there, which is so important in these times. And I believe we need to vote with our money more than ever before. So I think this is very, very important to do that. So please check it out. Also, Gareth, where can people find you on social media and follow you and all that good stuff?
I'm on Twitter for now. Every time I get asked that, I say I'm on it for now. But I'm also on Getter. And so, you know, I'm trying as much as I can to try and basically put as much stuff there as possible, because I kind of, you know, it's not even a case really now, for me at least, of you know, I'll stick on Twitter and they'll be my number one until I get banned. It's like, hell, you know, screw Silicon Valley, man. I don't want to be giving them my time and effort anyway. And so, you know, Getter is a really good place for that. And there's a lot of people there now. So it's good. So it's just getter.com and then just my name, or twitter.com and my name.
Wonderful. Gareth, thank you so much for your time today. I love our conversations. I love the journeys that we take in these. And it's always a pleasure and an honor. So thank you so much.
Oh, mate, thanks for having me. The pleasure's mine.
And Inspired Tribe, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. We love that you're here, and we'll be back with you again very, very soon.